The political landscape at a local level is beginning to take shape, with most of the metros in Gauteng likely to be run by the opposition parties. The leader of the EFF, Julius Malema, announced yesterday that his party will not vote for any ANC local government but will vote for DA. And he said his party will not be participating in any coalition government. The DA leader, Mmusi Maimane, on the other hand, announced a coalition of several opposition parties and declared that his party is ready to form governments in the metros. The major political leaders behind the scenes are UDM leader Bantu Holomisa and COPE leader Mosiuoa Lekota. They are with me to explain the latest developments. I can imagine that behind the scenes they were as the sort of elders. Gentlemen, welcome. Welcome.
Thank
so
you,
I was just checking the ages of the people who are making all these announcements, that they're much younger than yourselves, but there must be Amakrotman, the elders somewhere, who were guiding them on how to go about this business. Anyway, very interesting development, I must say. Tell me first about the formation of the coalition. Starting with you, Mmusi Maimane, what informed the smaller parties to come together with the DA and form this coalition?
Well, the first point to make is that we didn't start the discussions between the opposition parties last week or 2 months ago. As early as the fourth democratic parliament, we began discussions amongst ourselves as opposition parties, because we recognize the fact that although we were different formations, there were lots of common ground issues. For instance, all of us were committed to a genuine and faithful implementation and respect for the constitution of the country. All of us were committed to opposing corruption, because we could see that the budgets that we passed were not going through to benefit communities where they were supposed to be going. So it's important for people to understand that this is not an overnight thing. It's been developing. The gestation period is much longer. What has this time, the difference this time, is that the voters created an opportunity by voting in bigger numbers for opposition parties at local government level, and made it possible for a number of towns and cities to therefore, by pulling together opposition votes, open spaces where we can control some of the areas and begin to implement some of the things that we have been talking to them about.
Right, and the outcome and the latest development, General Holomisa, is it something you expected? I mean, in the lead up to the elections, it wasn't so clear, it was a bit murky then, and no one could foretell that, especially in Gauteng, for instance, that ANC would lose the majority it enjoyed in Tshwane, in Joburg, Ekurhuleni, and so forth.
Well, the truth of the matter is that the ANC undermined the intelligence of South Africans, and they were too arrogant, and they woke up very late, that they should have dealt with issues which are affecting the country, not only at local level, but at national level. For instance, the issues related to the scandals related to the president. And as my colleague has already said, the voters have rewarded the opposition parties, which has seized the initiative since Zuma ascended to power. And we have won a lot of cases against the government. Even the Constitutional Court vindicated what we have been saying. So we look forward now to working with the bureaucrats, which we are going to inherit in these coalitions. The important thing here, one, is that there must be continuity. We must assure the workers that we are not here to conduct purging, but we want to make sure that the quality of service is improved. The productivity, therefore, needs to be improved. And also, people must know that we are not going to deliver on the first day when we are in these coalitions, because the budget is a committed budget for the next 3 years. What we are going to do, since August and September is a period where you review budgets, then we can start saying, let's reprioritize. If, for instance, you go to places like Alexandra and other townships and informal settlement, you see big rats like this, which are in danger to the kids. What should we be doing about that? That means you reprioritize those areas.
But let me interrupt you for a moment, particularly UDM now, because not a couple of days earlier this week, the ANC's mayoral candidate for Nelson Mandela Bay, Denny Jordan, was indicating that he's in talks and that Trollip of the DA was celebrating rather too early and implying at that time that the UDM was likely to join the ANC in government there. What happened?
No, the problem with the ANC in Port Elizabeth, I don't think they had intelligence, even nationally. They don't have intelligence. Because all what was announced yesterday, it came like as a shock. They are in a state of denial. So they was just playing politics because there's never been any deal. And we said so publicly that negotiations are continuing. For him to have started to doubt Trollip, that is his own business. He will deal with that. Doesn't concern us.
It had nothing to do with you whatsoever.
No, there was no promise.
All right. Now, in terms of the approach, it appears by the coalition of the opposition parties, it seems to me the intention is to make sure that where you enjoy a majority collectively, the ANC would not be given a chance to govern. And I'm going to focus for now on the metros. Is that the principled position?
Well, firstly, where we collectively form a majority, we certainly will form government. And we have serious conditions on which we have agreed we are going to work on. The first one is our commitment to the constitution of this country. And the African National Congress has, since President Zuma came on, has consistently undermined the constitution of the country. In fact, he has announced that the ANC is more important than the constitution. So there is simply no way in which we can collaborate with an organization that has blatantly, indicated its unpreparedness to respect the constitution. At the moment, when the Apex Court passed judgment on the president, they voted en bloc to defend him, and he's there illegitimate in our view. So we cannot collaborate with this. In the circumstances, we will do that. Where in other instances, you may have 2 or 3 of our sister formations forming a majority, they will form government there so that we are able to destroy the corruption, because this cancer of corruption...
But you see, the argument is being made that you're punishing the wrong people. That if the problem is the president, let's use Gauteng as an example. People like the mayor of Joburg Parkstad have been mentioned as people who are being unfairly punished, that they should be given a chance to govern. But, you've decided to go the whole hog against the ANC.
Well, unfortunately, we are interpreting the outcome of the results. The coalitions are permitted to operate in this country. It's a pity we don't have time. For instance, if we were to, I once suggested in the social network after these results, I said, why does DA and ANC not have coffee and meet together, because they've been given the mandate to run local governments and apply the same principle which Madiba and de Klerk engaged into, by having a unity government at local level. So, but we don't have time now, and we cannot allow another political bickering and make sure that the services are not carried out. We need to move with speed.
Well, Let's look at the change now.
Yes.
Well, as is, following the formation of the coalition. Where is change happening? It's in Nelson Mandela Bay. We won't have an ANC government.
Pretoria. It's going to be in Pretoria.
There's going to be, again, opposition parties in charge there. And Johannesburg,
Joburg, possibly if DA and EFF succeed in their talks, as well as in Rustenburg.
In Rustenburg and Ekurhuleni?
And in other areas. Yes. Ekurhuleni is still hanging.
And then Mohali City?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
So there might be something there, because between the Freedom Front Plus, the EFF and the DA, there's some discussion going on that will be. I just want to say something about this issue of individuals. When we say an organization is an incubator of corruption, we don't have time really to select this individual and that individual and this one and that. The general approach is that the African National Congress, if it catches somebody or if we expose somebody who's corrupt, they en bloc protect that person. Any group of people that act in this way, you cannot now have time to select them, because all of them act like a herd of cattle. And they do this kind of thing. So where we can, if we want to eliminate that, we must ensure that we put in place people that will respond when the communities complain about corruption, and then we should be able to act against it.
Now, some of you in these leadership positions are former ANC members. And I go to what Julius Malema said yesterday, and they said elsewhere, in Rustenburg, I think, in Marikana, earlier in the week, saying that ANC must be brought down and it's been eaten piece by piece. Is it something you agree with? And why, just for the benefit of, let's say, people who've been supporting the ANC for a long, long time, and they wonder why there's such animosity towards the organization itself, to the extent that you are willing, with the different political backgrounds, to come together on one issue, and one issue being opposing the ANC at all costs. What is it about the ANC that makes you, as former members of the organization, feel so strongly that it should not be allowed to govern?
It's because the ANC has abandoned the original agenda. The original agenda being to improve the quality of lives of South Africans. What we are seeing now is a looting. They are on a looting spree and misusing our resources, and at the same time failing even to prioritize education as the key for the future of this country. Why must we continue to defend them?
And Tata Lekota, why those who are still in charge in the ANC would see things differently to yourself and Bantu Holomisa here, you think?
A choice, people have made different choices. All the things that today we are seeing, most of us, even the people that are still there, they will tell you the ANC, this is no longer the African National Congress, the teaching we got. I'm very proud of the fact that whatever I'm doing, I learned really the biggest political learning I've had in my life was in the African National Congress. But this is not the ANC that I was taught, even in the prisons. Now, it's, as my colleague has just said, it's a free-for-all. The people have been forgotten. What's happening to our people is disastrous. Soweto is worse than what it was at the time. I went to Morris Isaacson recently. The school that was one of the pride of our people in apartheid period. It's nothing now. That Morris Isaacson, which was led by the late Matabata, is gone.
One quick final question. Every time, issues of the ANC are mentioned, the finger is pointed at President Zuma. Very briefly, do you think he deserves the criticism?
He's actually the prime responsible person. He's the head of the executive. Nothing, if he doesn't want corruption to happen or anything, it can never happen because he is the head of the executive. When President Mandela or President Thabo Mbeki was head of government, we held them responsible as well for whatever happened. He is the prime head of government, he can't say, for instance, Marikana, so many people were shot and killed.
Yeah.
The only commander-in-chief of the security forces of our country is the president of the country.
So you hold it. And now, with you,
Yes.
Mr. Bantu Holomisa, you have asked that you find a way of the president, an exit plan being put together for him. Do you also hold him accountable for what has happened, at least for the ANC, and what's going on up to this time?
Well, President Zuma is like a CEO of a company. In this country, even his own party, ANC is the mother of all non-racialism in this country. But for a sitting president to get down and play petty politics and attack these young boys like Maimanes, to say they are working with whites, with enemy, and so on. What nonsense is that?
Not the policy of the ANC.
That's not the ANC's policy. So he has messed up, let alone issues related to him being morally and intellectually challenged. So he has to go.
Gentlemen, thank you very much for having been my guests. I appreciate. And of course, as we have said, and you can see for yourself on a daily basis, politics changing and seemingly forever in South Africa. But we'll wait and see new governments being formed in Tshwane, Nelson Mandela Bay, most probably in Joburg, as well as Rustenburg. And these are the members of the coalition with the DA and the opposition parties collaborating. Let's hear your views. Please share them with us on Twitter at Tim Modise.